What were your ambitions when you were growing up?
I think I quickly realised when I was employed that I always wanted the next step. I always wanted almost like to be the boss. I don't see myself as successful. I see myself as just somebody who's like learning and just doing what I enjoy. At the time of exit, we had 18 staff.
When you decided to employ your first employee, what did that feel like? Dan, welcome to the Ambitious Minds podcast.
Thanks for having me, mate.
I'm really excited to get into this because you came to me from a friend who recommended you to come on, and from what I understand, you worked in a corporate career to begin with, and then you started your own business, which then was very successful, and you went on to sell it. I'd like to understand first of all, what were your ambitions when you were growing up? Like, why it seems like to be quite a jump to go from the corporate world into being an entrepreneur. Has it always been a plan of yours?
I think I quickly realised when I was employed that I always wanted the next step. I always wanted almost like to be the boss. I wanted more responsibility. I wanted to learn, I think, more over than anything. When that transition into like entrepreneurship came in my head, I'm not sure, but I kind of always knew that I wanted to do more. And I don't know, I just had this internal drive really that I can't explain. I'm quite, like most people are quite risk adverse.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't mind, especially at the time being really young. I had nothing to lose. I think I did know that I wanted my own business. I guess I didn't know what that would be. But yeah, I think coming from an accountancy background, I basically just learned as much as I could, and I was always involved in key decisions. Not necessarily involved, but like present. And then obviously as I got further up in my career, I then was involved. So it gave me a good basis of like, what does a big business do? Because I worked in like small to medium-sized businesses. I worked in big corporations. So yeah, it gave me a good grounding to then give me the confidence, I guess, to do something
Did
myself.
it start as a side hustle?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. And for like 5 years, I basically did nothing. I started when I was 25, just
Wow.
as like alongside my job. And I was actually a trainee accountant at the time. So I didn't have a lot of money, and I kind of fell into the idea. But yeah, just did it on the side. And I feel like if I'd just focused on it fully, it would have gone a lot quicker. But like, I had that background, and really as a trainee accountant, I didn't know all the things that I ended up learning when I got to head of finance. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad it worked out the way it did, although it's frustrating that I feel like I've lost out on that 5 years, you know?
Yeah, I understand that. But also we were speaking before and you were saying that actually the understanding the accounting part was a value add further down the line. But what was the company that you started?
So it's called Solace Jewellery. My girlfriend at the time had metal allergies, and I was basically just looking for a present for her for Christmas, and nothing was on the market. So I was doing some research and found out that 1 in 7 people have metal allergies.
Wow.
So I thought, big market. When I was doing some research, I found that stainless steel was hypoallergenic, but there wasn't really much competition. I think there was one business which I ended up acquiring a few years down the line. But yeah, there was one business, and they were selling things like skulls, and it wasn't the type of jewelry that I would gift to my girlfriend. So yeah, I found a supplier, and like the barrier was really low. I basically just placed an order for £100. That was their minimum order quantity. I gave it to like my mum because all of a sudden she was like, yeah, I've got metal allergies, or I struggle with that. I didn't even realise it was metal allergies. Obviously my girlfriend, and then a couple of other people came out of the woodwork, and I was like, okay, this is a problem. And they all said, yeah, I can wear them. So that's how it started.
I mean, like, you're not just appealing to people with metal allergies either. Like your market is large because it's jewellery at the end of the day.
Yeah. I didn't realise that until years and years down the line.
Oh, right.
So we started off just laser focused, which I think did help. But then obviously, even with 1 in 7, not everyone's going to hear about you. It becomes expensive to market. So we shifted into it. Actually, this is just really good, really like hard wearing jewelry. Like the things on the market at the time were like plated jewelry, which would rust. It would lose its color. You couldn't really take it in water, so you couldn't shower. People were taking it out. Whereas stainless steel jewelry was, it was hard wearing. It was waterproof. And it didn't tarnish. So we started pushing that narrative. And then a lot of the big businesses now don't necessarily go after hypoallergenic, but they're selling the same product but going after this waterproof, tarnish-free element and charging a lot more than Solus did.
Really?
So I don't know whether we started a movement or whatever, because I don't think stainless steel was really a thing when we started. So it was a lot of luck, but it was the perfect product. Why did I sell it again?
How did it work? So you were working in your corporate job as an accountant, and I'm guessing you were doing all your qualifications and those things and trying to progress up the ladder. And then you had this job on the side. How did you, what did work think about that when you were doing it? And how did you balance your time?
I guess another side of luck. I mean, my boss was very understanding. He was very, very generous in terms of his teaching of me. He would always give me more, I suppose. And I owe, I guess, a lot to him. He did get a bit frustrated because he would occasionally catch me on Shopify doing the website when I was supposed to be doing work. But I put the work first, and I was quite quick at that, I suppose. And ended up, just doing it in the evenings. And I actually then ended up getting a job and working in a bar. So I was juggling quite a lot with my studies and this and that, which is why it took me so long to eventually quit my job to do it, because waves of motivation and effort would go, would come to me, and then it would sort of take a dip. And I think I went on holiday once, and my mum took over packing the orders, and then I just never took it back. So I think for 3 years, my mum was packing the jewelry. So that helped, because it wasn't. I could focus on the business rather than just right, okay, I've got 10 orders to pack tonight. That time wasn't there. So
when you first started, you were doing everything.
Oh yeah.
Really? So you're doing your day job, you were coming home in the evening, you'd received a number of orders over the last 24 hours.
Which wasn't a lot, in fairness.
But then you were packaging them, and you were sending them out, going to the post office, all those different things.
Yeah. I remember we used to just put them in the letterbox. So we used to print off the label and click and drop. Yeah. And this was before I knew you could get someone to come and collect it from Royal Mail, and we were going and filling the local post boxes up, and we actually got someone, the local postman found out where it was coming from, so our house, and knocked on the door and was like, you need to stop filling the post box up. So we were driving around multiple post boxes, and then we learned that we could get it collected, or we could drop it off at the click and drop. I was just thinking, drop it off at the post box, but there was one 100 yards from the house, so it was more convenient than going to drop it off. But it was funny.
This is interesting because, and again, we had this conversation before starting about the sort of the naivety of business, and that when you first start, you don't really know what you're doing. A lot of entrepreneurs go into it and they're figuring it out as they go along, and that's a perfect example of that. Are there any other situations that you had where you were just I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll just figure it out. We'll say yes to this, or yes to orders, or we'll go in this different direction, but we'll have to just figure it out.
Everything other than finance, which is where I was comfortable. I mean, I say I'm a recovering accountant. Not many accountants, I don't think, are good at marketing, and I say I know enough. I'm not brilliant, but I understand. Well, I just learned. I've read hundreds of books and listened to hundreds of podcasts and just iterated. I mean, if you look at the brand that we started, it was terrible, and the website was terrible. But actually, so I've started a few businesses since. And I think it's hard. It's easier being naive because you don't know how much there is to do. Whereas now I'm starting, I'm I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, and then it's really hard to know what to do first. Whereas when you're just bumbling along, I think
did you enjoy? What did you enjoy starting Solus first, or do you now enjoy starting new businesses?
Yeah, I'm trying to shift my mindset because I think I lost myself a bit along the way, and it became a bit about the money. But actually, when I look back on it now, the fun bit was the journey to get there. It was when we were really small, when we were making these decisions that felt like make or break. Whereas when you get to a certain level where you've got a bit of, the business is doing well, and you're just trying to maximize profit, I think you lose yourself a little bit. So I really enjoyed the learning, just the figuring out, it was stressful at the time, but there was less to lose almost.
Can you give the listeners an idea of, at the time that you sold, how many staff you had, or what the revenues were, and because to contextualize how you went from packing orders in your spare time to by the time you exited?
Yeah, so when I gave up my job, I think the business was doing around £7,000 £500 a month. So it couldn't pay me a salary, especially not a head of finance salary. But I was just done. And then it was just myself, and I had brought on somebody to pack orders. And yeah, at the time of exit, we had, I think, 18 staff. A lot of them were part-time, to be fair. We had we did all our fulfillment in-house. I think 10 of them were part-time staff, picking and packing orders.
How do you feel when you reflect back on that journey?
It just feels like another, I don't even know. People, you often get people saying, oh, it was really successful and stuff. And I just enjoying the journey. I don't see myself as successful. I see myself as just somebody who's like learning and just doing what I enjoy. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the team that we built. I'm really proud of how many people we helped. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people who couldn't wear jewelry before and then can. But like I said, you kind of lose yourself along the way. So yeah, I think I preferred the first few years after quitting my job, even though I wasn't making as much money.
Yeah,
I think that was the best time.
How do you? So I just want to understand this, because I'm someone who, I've got this entrepreneurial brain, but I've not started a business, and I always think about these, and I've got my Apple Notes has like loads of different business ideas in there. But how does somebody go from idea, like you found your idea, which was like you want hypoallergenic jewelry. What were the first steps that you took to actually starting the business?
I mean, the first step was obviously finding a great product. I feel like it might be harder now, or it feels harder because it feels like everything's been done. But actually, I think you just have to find a great product that you fully believe in. I think some of the key things that, again, a little bit of luck, are it was solving a problem, it was small, it was cheap to post, you don't have to have a huge warehouse. So I think just finding something that like you can afford to stock, because I think
it's essentially a low risk.
Yeah. Well, that's how I did it anyway. And then really just learning, like I said, I just stumbled along, created a website. I mean, I was lucky again that Shopify had started to rise, and it was really easy to build a website. But it, if you look at the website that I built, it was terrible at the time. But yeah, just start and learn and listen and find material online. Like, there's so much free resource out there. And then we really focus on customer service. So again, had there been other competitors out there, I feel like we still would have won, because I think that our customer experience was just way better. And something that I was thinking about yesterday, actually, when I started the business, I used to give away one pair for free. So I almost had like a really basic pair, and in exchange for an email, we would give away, because it was like, nobody's heard of us. We don't have any social proof. How do we get this product in a customer's hands? So we literally said, sign up for email and we'll send you a free pair, in the hope that they'd say, great, this works for us, especially because a lot of people in this space with this problem have heard it all before. Like, they've heard hypoallergenic, they've heard these earrings will work for you, from like the plated jewelry that I mentioned before, and then it ends up not working. So they were really they were against us from the start, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, giving that product away, and obviously that's not sustainable long term, but it got us that social proof. It got us out there, and that's just one of the things. Like, I forgot that I'd done that in the past, and then you look at the ROI on that when I've analysed it, and it was like, it was really good. It was a really good move, but it was just through an idea, through listening to podcasts, that just came into my head.
Is
because
that right?
obviously I had no marketing experience before, so yeah, it just seemed like a good idea at the time. But it's these things of just try, test, measure, learn.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what I did with everything, And since then, I've realised that there were like 5 fundamentals that, again, from my finance background, not necessarily business background, but just understanding like what are the levers it can pull. I mean, again, that's more people are talking about that now, so like you can find out about that. But I just kind of figured it out along the way. But I think most people can do that.
What are those fundamentals?
So a lot of people, especially these days, just focus on meta ads and, how do we get more traffic? How do we, get better creative? But if the fundamentals aren't right, you're going to really struggle to grow. So you've got average order value, you've got conversion rate, you've got retention rate, your cost of goods, like the cost to ship the product, and then traffic. I think you should focus on the first four to maximize profit, like before you go for the traffic.
So do you find that when you speak to other entrepreneurs, they're going the other way around? They're trying to generate the traffic without understanding the other four fundamentals?
Yeah, people who are just starting, I think that ads are just going to be this magic bullet. But until you've got the product, the customer service, the experience, until you've got that right, and then you focus on like actually being profitable, it's amazing how many business owners I speak to, like e-commerce business owners, that you say, right, so what are the unit economics? And I don't even think they know what that means. I mean, hopefully it's becoming more like talked about now, but I think people come at it from a marketing side, and they just think, I just want to make it look amazing, without actually thinking, can this be a profitable long-term business? Because I don't think people understand how much it actually costs to acquire a customer. And then there's a lot, about now of like, you can be loss-making at the start, but as long as you've got that customer retention, but I mean, you've got to have cash flow to fund that.
Yeah.
Because if you're losing money and then it takes you 3 months, you've got to fund that. But you've potentially bought that stock 6 months in the past. So, yeah, I think having a finance background just inherently helped.
Can you just give us a quick overview, using your finance background, about what it is, what unit economics are for somebody who's listening now?
So I think you need to have enough revenue to cover, obviously, all of the costs. So like the unit cost, all of the postage and packaging. You then got to factor in how much you think it's going to cost you to acquire that customer. And that then gives you essentially your contribution margin. And if that is like £2 after you've paid all your bills, how many of that item do you need to ship out to cover like your basic like fixed expenses, like rent, like, staff. And yeah, I don't think people kind of think about how much profit they're making per order, or even if it's like not that great now because you're just starting out, once you buy at scale, what you can get those unit economics to, because it's fine, I guess, to start and test a product out because you don't have huge expenses if you're running out of your bedroom.
Yeah.
But like you need to like think about the future and say, right, how much is rent going to cost me? What's all these extra expenses like software? Once you start getting into needing, more apps on your Shopify store and all these things that sort of add up.
And would you encourage people to go out there and speak to the suppliers and say, if I was to order 100,000 of these units, if I was to order 200,000, like what would the average price be?
Yeah, I think you need to understand the trajectory of what you can be at. And again, I mentioned cost of goods as one of them. Like, even just looking at how much a bag costs that you used to send it out in, And I'm not saying go for the cheapest, because actually we raised our price of how much we were paying on a box because we had it nicely printed, because that was part of the unboxing experience. But, it's like evening all these things out to think, well, that's going to impact the retention rate higher than it's going to impact the cost of goods rate. So it's far easier to like increase each of those 5 fundamentals by 20%. Obviously, you want to reduce cost of goods by 20%. But like, if you do that, you could double your business. Whereas it's really hard to double your traffic, and it costs more. So sometimes you can double your traffic, but actually your cost per click goes up, and you actually lose. Like, you're actually net like worse off.
And because in order to fund the meta ads, you're using cash that's in your bank account fundamentally. Yeah. So you're depleting cash reserves to spend money on ads.
Well, hopefully that you'd also be making sales.
Well,
but yes,
exactly. But it's not guaranteed. But
yeah, well, exactly.
What are the sort of conversion rates for ads when you started to use them properly? Would you see like an immediate return on the ad spend?
Yes, because we were profitable at first order. Again, that depends what your model is. I mean, our average order value was really low. I think a lot of people say that you need a £50 or $50 minimum average order value to have a profitable business. Again, when I started Solace, it was £18 was my average order value.
Okay.
Because I didn't know how much ads would cost me, because I'd never ran them before. So I think as soon as I realised, I was in that bucket of ads don't work for me, that like a lot of people say, but actually like we weren't right for the ads. So I knew then we needed to increase our average order value. I forgot the question. Was it about conversion rate? I think I've gone off on ad spend, but the conversion rate on ads. So, but you need to have enough profit per ad per order to run ads, because you're going to see your conversion rate drop. Because if you think about it, if somebody's searching for you or it's word of mouth, they're far more likely to trust the business when they click on an ad. So I think, our conversion rate was really strong. I think the average for an e-commerce site is about 2%, 2 to 3%. I think we were converting at about 5%.
Wow.
And then when we started running ads, obviously that diminished, but I think we averaged out at about 4% over the last couple of years.
Wow.
So still strong, but again, that average order value was quite low, but we were still more profitable than most.
When you talk about meta ads, are you primarily advertising on Instagram at this point?
I mean, I think our customers were mostly on Facebook rather than Instagram. I think when you looked at that split, we were always we ran Instagram only ads and they wouldn't convert as well. So again, it's even just drilling down, you don't need to do this right away, but once you understand actually where is your customer, our customer was a bit older, therefore tended to go towards, but like Meta does that all for you really.
Okay. Yeah. That surprises me because I don't use Facebook anymore, but I do use Instagram. Yeah, and I find that the combination between Instagram and Shopify is so powerful. Over Christmas, it took me probably 2 minutes to go from seeing something I'd never seen before to having bought it. And that experience and like the frictionless experience of that was quite frankly amazing.
Well, you just mentioned the key word, frictionless. I think on the topic of conversion rate, I think one of the key things is just removing as many barriers as you can. And that's, I guess, that is what conversion rate is, it's that trust and removing barriers.
Yeah. Were there anything, did you do anything that you would say increased your conversion rate over that time that is better than your peers?
I think a few things is, again, removing barriers. So really thinking about like the customer experience. What's the returns policy? I mean, jewelry, nobody accepts returns as soon as it's been worn. But we said, do you know what? We're going to try and say, right, you can return it. Obviously, we didn't resell it, but the cost of jewelry is quite low. So like we were happy to take that risk because, again, looking at those 5 things and averaging them out, the increase in conversion rate far outweighed the detriment of how many returns you get. Because again, we trusted the product. We knew that it was going to work. So we just removed that barrier and nobody else was doing that.
What you're doing is you're allowing them to trust you at this point by having a returns policy.
Yeah. Again, shipping thresholds, they were you got to play around with them, but it ended up, we ended up saying if you sign up for our VIP scheme, which is essentially a reward scheme, and it's free to join, you get free shipping for life. So again, removing that barrier. Yeah. But also we understood that the customer lifetime value of somebody who signed up for that was like 3x just the average customer.
Wow.
So it's a benefit to get them onto that. So again, I wish I'd known this all at the start, but
this is the glory of podcasts, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm very grateful for you going through these details now because I'm learning a lot sitting here listening to you. And you said before that podcasts were a big factor for you in your learning and understanding how these things work. Are there any podcasts that you do listen to?
Yeah, I mean, Kurt Elster's unofficial Shopify masters, I think. Chloe Thomas's e-commerce master plan. There's loads if you type in
and you can get all these like free nuggets of information.
Yeah, again. But I think the key is to implement something. Yeah. So you can definitely get into listening too much and then it's just like information overload. Like I used to listen to maybe one a day, but I would try and implement one thing from that per day. Or what was great was when you get a team, although I don't think they thought about it. It was a running joke every time I came in and said, I've listened to a podcast, and I'm like, here we go. But yeah, like implementing, executing. You're not going to do anything. Like so many people think, oh, I've got a business idea, or I really want to start a business. Sit on it for 2 years, just start. It's going to be rubbish. It's going to be hard, but you start it and then you learn over time and you implement and execute. And then, you look back in 5 years and you go, wow, I've got an extra 10 grand a month coming in. Like, I think there's a lot of people out there saying, £100 million business and, you can make money easily and all this and drop shipping. But actually, I think like the slow and steady approach, I think you're going to win in the end. Obviously, I would love to start a business and it turn over 100 million next year, but it's like that seems so unachievable that you just don't start. Whereas I think actually just starting something with the hope of learning and helping people, and then you look back after 5 years and you've learned so much, and then you've got these skills, and you hopefully have got extra income coming in.
You mentioned there about you would love to have a business that turn over 100 million next year. Now, this podcast is called Ambitious Minds. Is that one of your ambitions to own a business or to manage a business that is revenue generating to that level?
I always said a £10 million business, and that is still like a goal of mine. But what I've realised is it's not for the money. I mean, obviously it is. Don't get me wrong, but it's more the challenge now. I think I want to do it as a challenge rather than just as a like, look at me, I've got a £10 million business, which I think maybe 5 years ago that's probably where I was at. But yeah, I've realised that like the journey. I think I shared a book with you recently that has changed my mindset on things, and yeah, it's don't get me wrong, I'm talking about all the good things here, but it was really tough.
Don't worry, we're going to get into the bad things.
It was really tough, and it's been really stressful, and there's been a lot of sleepless nights. So I don't want it to come across like everything was rosy. And
No. Well, like, what I wanted to get first of all was this like building business masterclass, which I think you've very eloquently explained. But I do actually want to understand, like, it isn't all rosy. We know this. Like, everybody, if it was just as easy as everyone says, then everyone would be doing it. So let's go back to the early days. Like, what were some of the struggles that you faced in the business? You said there were some hard times, some sleepless nights.
I think like I said, just the first 5 years was just the motivation. I was really driven, but I was managing a lot of things, and like my accountancy had to be like at the forefront.
Yeah. Pay the bills.
Yeah, and I had, I got a job in a pub, just to earn a bit extra money because, yeah, I mean.
So you were doing 3 jobs.
Yeah, I suppose.
You had your business,
yeah,
accountancy, and pub.
Yeah, and living in Newcastle, I was going out quite a bit as well. But yeah, it was tough. But yeah, so it was the motivation. That was the hardest bit then, because it wasn't really a financial burden because it was such low risk. It was low value, which again, I didn't even realise, but it was just lucky that I fell into that business. But I think the real struggle started when I quit my job. I'd saved up essentially 6 months. I had 6 months to make it work, and 4 months in, I was going, I'm gonna have to get a job again. But I had like enrolled onto this thing called the NatWest Accelerator program.
Yeah.
So that gave me a lot of confidence, and we got like a mentor, so doing like a 1-to-1 every month, and that's really when I understood. Stop trying to do everything. So I think one of the challenges at the start was just like, do I start another business? Because like we've got to say 10 grand a month or 15k a month, and it's generating a few £1,000 profit. So if I start another one, it might be easy to get to that. That might be easier than growing this to £50,000 a month, so I can actually take a wage. Do I do markets? Do I do wholesale? Like the challenge was just knowing what to do, because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But once like having that sort of person on the shoulder going, right, what's working? Double down on that, and just really understanding how to grow a business, like learning that. But the challenge was like knowing what to do. And then I guess after that, once we started like making money, and then it was like, how do we keep this going? How do we fulfill everything? We moved from obviously my spare room to a small office, and we thought, wow, like this is a big financial burden. It was like £600 a month, which is, I look back now and I think there's nothing I shouldn't have been. Well, I suppose you should be worried because you're tying yourself in for like 2 years, but within a year we'd outgrown that. And then we moved into a place, we like managed to talk to the landlord and figure out, when we moved into a place that was like 4 times the size. We're never going to outgrow this. Within a year it was like, we've got no space here.
Wow.
So that was a good thing, because it really made us think, how can we be more efficient? Instead of just going, how can we have more space so that we can do the same thing? It's like, right, how can we move it around? How can we get more desks in? How can we make the packing, experience like quicker. I broke my wrist. I came off my bike and broke my wrist, and then the next day I was building these trolleys to like push it around so we could pack 128 orders at a time instead of doing them individually. And I was like, that got us through Q4. But then it was like, we need a new office, but there's nothing around. It was like we were looking at aircraft hangars that were going to be 5 times the cost. Thinking, what am I going to do? And then there was obviously like the 3PL, but we're thinking that means we're going to have to make all the packing staff redundant. So the really hard, like, what are we going to do moments.
Yeah. That's so I actually want to go back a second. I want to come back to this about the using a third-party logistics provider. But when you decided to employ your first employee, what did that feel like?
Again, that's one of the things that was really, really good. But at the time, it was like, can we afford it? But I learned from that then frees, because I'd taken it back off my mum of packing the orders. And that was one of the key moments that I understood that I can't do everything. Need to start bringing people in. And actually, as long as there's the cash there, or this is how I think, as long as there's the cash there and you're bringing somebody in that's going to add value, that's going to then add value to the company. It's going to add value to you, because either you can have some time back or you can focus on other things. And I obviously focused on other things. And then the person that I brought on to do the packing then moved into doing the emails. So all of a sudden we've gone from sending 1 email a month to 4 emails a month. And then it was 2 emails a week, and she's really grown in that role. And then, brought on somebody to take over the operations when we got big enough, and then brought in a marketing manager. And I always hired, like, before I felt comfortable that we could really afford it, but obviously with the hope that, right, this is going to be what keeps us growing. And thankfully, most of the hires did that.
And this is the hard thing, is to juggle your ambitions and your optimism about where the business will go with, you go back to that unit economics. Every hire that you make reduces your or increases your cost of goods sold. So you come from your accountant's background, which is probably a bit over analytical as well. When you sit there and look at it and go, we think we're going to get to here, but this is what it's going to do to the revenues in day one by hiring this person. But I had a guy on called Phil Fraser, who I think really explained it in quite a nice, understandable way, which was, if you hire somebody for £24,000 a year, don't think about it as £24,000 expense. It's a £2,000 a month expense instead. Yeah. And then really try to reduce it down to say, what are my outgoings every month? And then work out from there. Because if you start to understand that, well, if the business doesn't work out, if it's not a good move, fundamentally the person will no longer be there in the future anyway. So then their cost isn't really £24,000. It's just the ongoing monthly payment that you make to them. Yeah.
I think a lot of people know when they need to hire as well. But yeah, it definitely worked out for me in terms of hiring people just before. We knew that there was a gap in what we needed to do. And yeah, obviously just filling that gap rather than just hiring people for the sake of it. We always hired when we needed it, but it still felt it was before that we could afford it. But
were there lessons that you learned from building Solace that, I know that you own another business now. In fact, I think you're trying to start multiple businesses at this point, aren't you? Talking about that motivation and sort of, focusing on one thing. But are there things that now you've learned that you would absolutely implement in a new business?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, the financial models and understanding all of these things. I think that is just, everybody needs to do that as a business owner. But I did say it's actually hard because there's so many things. I mean, these 5 fundamentals and just focusing on them, that is definitely something that I didn't know before that I'm 100% going to do into this, because it's too easy to think about doing everything. I mean, a lot of people focus on PR, getting in magazines, organic social. All these things are nice to have, but they're not the fundamentals of growing an e-commerce business, at least not in my experience. And a lot of people are saying the same thing. So yeah, the laser focus on what does need to be done, building email flows, automating as much as possible. I mean, AI is a great tool now, so you don't necessarily need as many employees as potentially you did, 5 years ago. but obviously you've got to understand how to input, like what the inputs are to get what you want out. And I think, you know, the key fundamental principles around how people shop, you know, removing the barriers, that social proof. I think content has changed a huge amount, and that's something that I'm trying to learn because I haven't cracked it. Like, even with a multi-million-pound business, I think the content was always the hardest part, and we never quite got that right. So learning, you know, the principle is always be learning. I think that's probably the overarching theme of what to implement in a new business, because everything is changing, especially in an online world. You mentioned like 3PL, so we had an in-house team. That was a real challenge, and while it was great and I loved the team, like, it just brings in so much complexity. So we're looking at a 3PL for Atticus now, rather than doing that again. But again, I don't know what that's going to look like until 6 months down the line. So I think, like, that's from the operation side. And then, marketing is just focusing on those 5 things.
Why did you decide to buy the new company Atticus?
Wasn't through common sense, I don't think, in financials. I think it was more of a passion project at this point. So I've done, you know, I mentioned, like, one of my goals is to run a £10 million business. But really, I think right now, where I've just come from of 5 years of really hard work, I kind of want to enjoy the next couple of years of maybe a bit more of a lifestyle business. So really into cycling. Atticus Cycling is obviously cycling clothing. And yeah, I really love the business. And again, the unit economics aren't as strong as in the jewelry business, but I still really believe that I can make it work. But a lot of it was just about having fun while in business. Like I mentioned, you know, enjoying the journey. I've got no doubt that the business can do well. It's going to be harder because of those unit economics, but I kind of understand that and can allow for that in, like, what expenses I bring on into the business.
Yeah,
I definitely got carried away on day one and ordered too much stock though. So even I get it wrong, like, quite a lot. But yeah, that's why I bought the business. It was the journey, it was the fun, it was the passion, because I didn't have any passion for jewelry. Like, it was just something I stumbled into. It was in my head it was a good idea, and it turned out to be right. But, you know, I don't wear earrings, and, you know, never had any benefit from it. So the cycling something
that's actually really interesting that you've built a business and you don't even wear the product.
No. So yeah, I kind of wanted that a little bit, but I guess it's a little bit easier when you don't have the pressure of making. Obviously, you want to make a profit off from the business, but not needing that income is very different. But yeah, obviously, I still want to grow it, and I need to have an income. So
yeah,
so yeah,
you successfully sold a business young. You know, you are very young for someone who's done that and achieved that. Does that cause you any, like, sleepless nights or anything? Like, what am I going to do next? I know you've bought Atticus, but you're somebody who, when we spoke before, you wake up early in the morning, your head's full of ideas. You've spent the last 10 years building a business, and now you've exited that, you've stepped away, you've got some money for it, but, like, what do you do next is the question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I think this was the part of the reason as well of buying, is so that I had something next.
Yeah.
So even if it wasn't the most sensible move financially, like, it was something that I needed to do to get up in the morning and enjoy, you know, building a business again. And like you said, I've started another business. But yeah, it's a daily struggle to say no to things, just to say no to myself, because I have daily ideas. A lot of them are probably terrible ideas, but I always want to do more than I'm capable of. But I've learned over the years that every time I try and add something else in, something else drops. So I need to stay laser focused on what I am doing. But yeah, it is really difficult. But I think what to do next is quite easy for me, because there's lots of things that I could do.
So many things that you could do.
But it's hard to figure out what those things are.
What's the Shopify business that you're starting as well?
So obviously, accountancy background, grown a Shopify business, speak to a lot of e-commerce business owners, and, you know, they don't know fundamentally how much profit they're making every month, every week, every day. And I just find that mad, because it's like driving a car blind to me. So I really want to help people, because I understand that not many people, like I said, people come to the marketing side, not the finance side. I think I was speaking to someone yesterday who said it's really rare to speak to someone who has both. So I kind of want to use that A, to my advantage, but B, to help people. So the Shopify app that I'm building, all the data is there to know this stuff. It's just manipulating it, and a lot of people don't want to spend hours in spreadsheets, and most people don't want to speak to their accountant every day or week. So we're essentially trying to build an app that gives you that information, how much profit you're making, what your unit economics are, what the key KPIs are. But that's all well and good of seeing it on a screen, but it's like what to do with that information. So yeah, I'm creating content behind that to be like, this is what to do. Now, whether that will turn into a course, whether that turns into consultancy, whether that turns into a bit of one-to-one with the brands that we work with, I'm not sure, but we're just focused on building my co-founders on building an app that's going to be really useful. And then I'm trying to put down everything that I've learned into like a framework that can help other people.
Because that must be, so you said there, all the data is there, but people don't necessarily know what they're looking for, how to interpret it. Would you say that's the hardest part, is like all the information that is there that Shopify provides you, it's how do you take the data out, manipulate it, and then understand how to use it?
Yeah, because everybody could download the relevant reports and see that, but it's understanding actually what is a strong profit per order. Is this business actually scalable? I think that's the number one question. Can you actually scale this business?
What makes a business scalable?
Having enough profit in it, I think,
and enough
having
demand, I guess.
Yeah, enough demand. Obviously, yeah. Sorry, yeah, enough demand, and I guess enough profit, and a founder, I think, that's going to learn and execute.
So you've got the profit side of things. So do you have enough profit in the product to then make it scalable? But does that mean that then you can say, right, okay, I'm making good margins here? Do good margins indicate as well that like there are less competitors in the market, for example? Like what does that? I'm trying to understand here, like what that good, like the profit margins, etc., mean.
So fundamentally, it means that you can spend more than your competitor on ads. Okay. So you can take up more real estate on ads on wherever you want to market. So that's why increasing your average order value, increasing your conversion rate comes in, because if you can beat your competition on that and you can have more profit per order, you can spend more. Now, obviously, that means that you potentially level out on how much profit you're making. But if you're then generating 50% more orders, then the actual profit you're making as a business is more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important to understand this so that you can effectively, market without making a loss, which is, I think, what a lot of people do.
Yeah. Okay. So some businesses literally just say, I should be marketing, and therefore I'm going to spend more money on ad spend. But what you're saying is, if you know that you've got good profit margins, you can then take that money and then use that money to then reinvest into trying to generate more orders, and it becomes this exponential order volume or whatever.
Yeah. I think just don't start with what marketing can I do. It's how can I really optimize every single visitor, because when you're talking about a 2% conversion rate, that means that 98 out of 100 will leave the store without buying. If you've got to pay for that 100, if you've got to pay £1 per click,
wow,
potentially,
98p is being spent on people that are never just clicking straight off.
£1 times it's £98 would be spent on.
Wow.
So yeah, you have to have then enough profit in the 2 to cover the 100.
Wow.
But obviously, if that was 4%, and you've got a £50 average order value, you're doubling the amount of revenue you're taking.
Interesting. So these are the things that I don't really understand, but I've had a few people on so far who do have e-commerce businesses. So, and I imagine that, e-commerce is something that people really understand because they are consumers, and also people always look at it and say, oh, can I sell a product? And so I think it's really useful for people who are out there thinking about starting a business. In fact, I was at a wedding recently, and a girl that I met, she was like, oh, I love the idea of your podcast because I'm trying to start a business right now, but I don't really know how to do it. These are all the sort of the questions. It's like where to start, and how to make it profitable, how to grow it. And these are the sort of the hurdles that people, I mean, when they're first thinking about starting, overcomplicate, and they don't. Well, you said just start, figure it out, and as you go along, and then you learn it as you're going along. But for some people, that's a very, very difficult thing for them to overcome. It's a big leap to make, and it also means, like, I think mentally people say you got to quit your job and all these things, but maybe it's actually a lot more straightforward. You start, you do it as a side hustle, you figure it out, but then that part there, which you talk about, understanding your unit economics, understanding is this scalable, is something that, but just by changing your understanding of your own business, you can work out very quickly whether or not this is a viable long-term business or not.
Yeah, there's another. So Daniel Priestley. Not sure if you've
I
heard
love
of
his
him,
content.
but yeah,
Yeah.
but he talks about getting to proof of concept and doing nothing else. So like I think he even talks about not even buying a product, like just essentially
the waitlist thing.
Yeah, build a wait list of people who would be excited about it. Set a benchmark of like, if I get X number of people on the wait list, then this is a viable product. Obviously, not all of those will buy, but I think instead of, I'm guilty of this in the past. I wanted to start a baby clothing business when I had my first child, and I was like, oh yeah, I could do this. There's loads of people doing it. I've got e-commerce knowledge. I can do it. But I bought the baby grows. I got them printed and stuff, and nobody bought. And whereas if I'd gone the other way and not actually spent any money on the baby grows and whatever, and just tried to build a list and gauge the interest, I then would have realised actually this is a bad idea. So yeah, I follow his content maybe, and
Yeah, he is a business genius, and the fact that he is providing all of this information for free. And I first came across Daniel Priestley when he wrote The Key Person of Influence, and that must have been 15 years ago. And it's taken all of that time to actually for him to go, I guess, viral, but like for him to be on the big podcast. He's done 2 now, because one released this week with Stephen Bartlett, so he's done a second one. But his first one was just like 101 how to start a business, and like the wait list idea is fantastic. If you're looking to start something, try to understand what your target market looks like, if people want it, or not. You can walk away from it at that point without spending any money.
I think the flip side of this is a lot of people talk about drop shipping and that being an easy way to make money. And I think I've seen a lot of content recently that it's quite scary. Of essentially just find a business that's doing a high value product, steal all of their assets from the website and all the social proof, and then just try and sell it before you even find a product. Now I think that's not the way to build a long-term brand. Like, and dropshipping, your margins are so much smaller. But yeah, I think that side of it, of actually just you're saying that I don't have this product yet, but what would be the interest? I think that is a key thing. But it's probably, you're going to get a lot of people just clicking on it and going, all right, yeah, it sounds like a good idea, but how many people would actually convert? I'm not sure. Like I've not done this, but it does seem like a good concept to lower the barrier or lower the risk. And I think getting to proof of concept, I mean, that was what my first 5 years was. It was proving the concept.
Really?
I didn't realize it at the time, but essentially without spending a lot of time on it, people were referring other people. People were shopping again, got to like £7,000, £10,000 a month. Although it couldn't pay me, it was a good amount of orders at £18 an order to give me the confidence that actually people will buy this. And I hadn't quit my job, I hadn't spent a huge amount of money on it. Like I was profitable, I was taking maybe £1,000, £2,000 a year out of it, like the dividend threshold, and paid for a holiday. But there was very little risk on that first £100. That was the risk.
Can we just talk about that? So you were saying you were making about £7,000 a month. Now I see on social media now about people talking about get to £10,000 a month because that's your lifestyle business, etc. But you're talking there about £7,000 a month wasn't enough for you to essentially live on. What why is that bad information that's out there about this sort of £10,000 a month, £120,000 a year? But that's revenue. That's not profit. That's not money that you can take out
Yeah.
and pay yourself a wage.
Yeah, it all depends on how profitable the business is.
Yeah,
and I was reinvesting that in the website. You know, I wasn't, like I say, I was taking the bare minimum out of the business, but that felt like something was worth my time doing it. But it all just depends on what you want. So do you want to grow the business to being multi-millions, in which case you need to reinvest as much as you can into the market, into getting better, into education. If you just want to take an extra £1,000 to £2,000 a month, which is a lot of money to a lot of people and will help a lot of people, that is, I think, is achievable. I think what happens there is if you then don't continue that, like the fall from 7k a month to zero is probably going to be a lot quicker than, if you've built something that's doing 50k a month.
Yeah.
I think that's probably more established and is less likely, but I suppose it could still fail. I'm kind of just saying what's on top of my head here, but I think aiming for continual growth. I mean, we doubled the business every year.
Did you?
Pretty much.
Did you? Wow.
I think there was 1 year we didn't, profitability wise, and that was because I was testing the model of just trying to get as many customers in the door. So we doubled revenue.
Interesting.
But our CPAs went through the roof because we were like, let's just get as much traffic. I kind of went away from my own senses because this is what everyone was saying, like just get as many customers in the door. Don't worry about it being profitable. And to be fair, then the next year when we went back to the model of let's be laser focused on profit, we had so many more customers that we could market to. So I think it worked in the long run, but to do so much extra work and because that takes more staff to pack the orders. There's a lot of things that go into it, more stock to buy at the start. But long term, it did work. But it felt at the time like, why have I just done all this work this year to make less money?
But you've also proved that other concept, which is people talk about getting more eyes on the product, etc. And you're talking about actually how do I make this product more profitable? But you actually realised that focusing on the profit side of things was more important than the.
I think there's an element of both because obviously I had more customers to market to. So
Okay,
I think maybe before I did that, I think I was too focused on profit, and that was like stumping the growth that it could achieve.
Sure.
So I learned, and there are hundreds of ways to grow a business. I did it this one way, but I still think being profitable is far better than not being profitable.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And little changes can make huge amounts. Like I said, just incrementally increasing 5 things rather than trying to double one area of the business, I feel like is a lot easier and can have a huge impact.
What about increasing the price of the product that you sell to customers?
Yeah, that's something that I was really reluctant to do at the start, and I've done it now every year for the last 3 years.
Have you?
And nobody's literally...
Wow.
Not one person has said anything, but I was so scared to do it.
Yeah.
Again, we were increasing it by, maybe 10%. The costs were like all of our costs were increasing, especially in COVID. So we had to do it. Well, we didn't have to do it, but then potentially putting people's jobs at risk because not enough profit. So we did. I feel like at the time it felt like we had to do it, but I was really scared. But again, it's just testing.
Yeah.
If you can do it, if people then stop, if your conversion rate drops, it's all a balance. If your conversion rate drops so that you're actually making less profit, then just move it back.
Do you think that by the time that you left the business, the product was as well priced as it could be, or do you think that you could have priced it higher?
I think we were getting to. I mean, I don't know. I think everything will always increase. I mean, inflation, and I think costs of everything is going up. But it's a real balance. I mean, there are people selling the exact same stuff for twice the price, but they started at that. I was really scared to increase the price because I'm thinking people are telling their friends about it. People are shopping again. If all of a sudden they come back and something's 50% more, they're going to be like, well, either this person's really greedy or something's fundamentally changed, and I don't want to spend that. So it's finding out. But this is where, had I known then about this, I probably would have started at a higher price. But then you're scared that nobody will buy it if it's. it's trial and error.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, you make a product more expensive and then people somehow trust it more, which
Yeah.
is a weird thing, isn't it? It's like,
As
if
long
it's,
as,
if
long
it's
as
too
you
cheap.
back that up with a very good product.
Yes, of course.
And we had the customer service and the unboxing experience there.
Yeah.
Well, in the end, not right at the start, but like I think people put more weight in how it arrives and the unboxing experience than the actual product. Like we used to put little love hearts, a pack of love heart sweets in every box.
Interesting.
And there was a lot of comments in the. At one
Really?
point, it felt like people were raving more about the love hearts that they got. And I know I used to buy my cycling kit from this one place that would put a pack of Haribo in the
I know who
arms,
you're
and I'm
talking
like,
about. They're no longer around,
I
are
was
they?
about to say they've got
Yeah,
bust now, so
yeah.
I stopped myself from that. But
I used to use them.
yeah,
That's a really interesting point there, because I had some guys on the podcast called Nature's Joint, and it was a cacao business, and they recently they did this this like trial pack where you can get 3 smaller bags, and then you can try the different products, and it came in this beautiful box, and I shared it on social media because in the box, but it wasn't really the products I was sharing; it was the box I was sharing.
how it made you feel.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, especially if it's a low value, it's like they're gonna remember that, and they're gonna, if you get one item of clothing in the post, and it's literally in a plastic bag, and you unwrap it, and it might be exactly the same as something that comes and it's branded, it's got like a pack of sweets in it. They're making you feel valued, like they've put thought in it. So I always try to think, how can I make the customer experience better in all touch points, like on the website, on the ads, on the experience, on the follow-up, sending them thank you emails directly from me. Now, that was automated, but so many people would reply to it and say, it's so nice how you've taken the time to...
Really?
Some I felt a bit bad, but I mean, I did craft that message at the start, and I did
Yeah.
want to say that to everyone, but you can't say that to thousands of people.
Yeah, of
You
course.
can't send an email, but, these little things, and then following it up with more value, then they're going to trust you more.
Yeah. You said you listen to a lot of podcasts and read books. Is there, and this can even apply to stuff that you've been told from people in the past, like mentors, etc. But is there one piece of like business or financial advice that you've received that has stuck with you?
One piece. That's a hard question. Just picking one that stuck with me. I think it's probably resilience. Throughout all the story, and I know books are going to do this because of the whole story arc, but it's tough, it's hard, it's going to take a long time to grow anything of worth, I think. And it's so many people start and either don't want to go through it or stop just before they're about to hit success. There's so many times I thought about just closing Solace and just being like,
Did you?
It's been years. Why are all these people doing millions of pounds? And but I hadn't really put the effort in. If I go back now and look at myself now, I'm like, you're not really trying. But I just had the resilience to go on through whatever that was. Stubbornness probably more than resilience. But then when I quit my job, and you got fires coming at you all of the time.
Yeah.
You can't go a day or a week without something going wrong. And yeah, one thing that sticks just as a story is the month after I quit my job to run Solace full time, my supplier disappeared. We used to order it off this website, and it just disappeared.
What?
And I was like,
it was no longer there.
It's just
it was
no
gone.
longer there. Like, you type in the URL and it would just come like 404 error. And I'm searching on Google for like hypoallergenic jewelry or stainless steel jewelry manufacturers. Nothing's coming up. I'm talking to my dad about it, and because he can't spell, he typed jewelry in the American way, and he's like, what are you talking about? There's loads of people. Because I was typing it in the UK way, but obviously manufacturers in China and Asia and all over the world spell jewelry in the American way. But yeah, that was so stressful. I'm like, oh my God, I've just quit my job and I'm not going to be able to buy any of this jewelry, and there's no manufacturers. Turns out there was, and you know, I went over to China to vet the suppliers, and it was
Did you?
it was an amazing experience. But yeah, it was it was a tough time.
You went out to China to see the people in person.
Yeah.
You spoke about resilience there, and the question I've got for you, and this sort of comes from a personal experience. People talk about the hardest part of the journey being the starting the business, but I actually found that starting the podcast, that was like the really fun part. It was like all of your energy, your motivation was at its highest. I've actually found that you go through like a trough, maybe like 6 months to a year in, when the initial enthusiasm has, kept you going for a while. Then you realise this is fucking hard. Like, this is really time consuming. This is really hard. And then it's about maintaining the consistency. And there is a statistic with podcasts, and it's something like the majority of episodes don't go past episode 8, and like 99% or something of podcasts fail before episode 50. And so I'm recording this now. This is probably going to be something like the 50th episode when it goes out. But I suspect that there's something in there in terms of the initial enthusiasm and motivation gets you through that start. Did you find that there was like a lull at all, and that you had to like persevere through any periods where it was just like every day I'm waking up and it's like, I've got to do this. I've got to go to work again in my business, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that was literally the first 5 years were a roller coaster. I think once I started understanding how to grow the business, and we started to get to that scale, that was the fun part. It was almost like starting again. And then the lull came when everything was, like when you kind of know how to grow, and you are, you're seeing this growth, it kind of becomes a bit boring.
Okay.
For someone who has multiple ideas and wants to do other stuff. And I was constantly like thinking about other stuff. But I guess spoke to a lot of other e-commerce owners and would like help them with their business. And I kind of got my excitement from that. And then I started thinking, okay, maybe I should do some e-commerce coaching. So I set up e-com coaching as a website and recorded like a course. And then once I'd done that and the initial excitement, and I actually had to sell the course, I was like, I can't do that as well as run Solace effectively, especially with the scale. So yeah, you're right. It's like the initial excitement gets you through, and then once you actually have to run the business, that becomes like boring. And I think that's ultimately why I exited in the end, because it became less fun.
And I'm experiencing this right now as well. Not the less fun part, but I'm getting more and more opportunities that are coming out of this. And it's interesting that you said a lot of people quit just before it's going to be successful. But there was a period around Christmas, actually, when it was a really tough time, because I was very cognizant of the fact that there would be a window over Christmas where you probably can't do any recording. So I squeezed in as many as I could pre-Christmas. And I was like, I'm burnt out right now. Like, I can't do this. I did two episodes in one day, for example, and like that was hard. And then I reflected on it, and I was like, wow, like this is seriously tough right now. Like, this is like, why am I doing this ultimately? Like, I'm doing this to like put all this effort into this business, but like, where's it going to get to? And then one of those guests that I recorded on the 2 in 1 day has gone like parabolic. Like the listens and the downloads have been absolutely insane. And it was like over the Christmas period, I was sitting and debating, being like, yeah, can I keep doing this? Can I keep doing this? Can I just keep going for it? Like, how long is this sustainable for?
And when you stop, it's hard to get started again.
Yes, and that Christmas break was my first Christmas break, and it was like, like I needed to refine the motivation to go and do this and speak to guests, etc., because it's very time consuming.
Yeah.
And then I got that episode that went live last Friday, and it's been insane. And I'm like, that's when they say like you are so close to like amazing things.
Yeah.
And all it took was just that perseverance and to finally get there. But also came at the time when I was probably at my least motivation for the podcast.
That's good. I think I mean that's a lesson to everyone, right? That
You
just never know
when
I think it's like you put like a lot of the things that I did try in the 10 years like failed, but 1 out of 10 will outweigh, like the results will weigh the 9 losses, if that makes sense. So I guess is that a bit like investing or not? I mean, I'm not sure, but
I mean, investing is the best example of compounding, and you know, it takes a long time. It's one of the things that I find very annoying about compounding, about investing, because those compound returns take so long to see them, but then by the time you get there, they are huge.
and it's the same of adding things into the business. Very rarely do you do something that's gonna, you know, exponentially grow your business.
Yeah.
But it's the compound effect of adding all the different things to the product page. You know, all the trust factors, all the reviews. It's I suppose it's quite similar in the way.
Yeah.
And there are so many businesses that just grow, and it's just like, wow, they've just hit the nail on the head, or whatever they've done has just been perfect. But I think that is probably 1 in 10 as
Yeah,
well,
of
or
course.
maybe even 1 in 100 businesses do that. But there's still 50 businesses or 20 businesses that do really, really well, but just don't have this sort of like the unicorn. They just don't do that. And then there's 50 businesses that fail because people, either it was a bad choice to start, or I guess they give up. And those figures are just totally made up in my head. But,
Yeah, but I'm assuming that
the
they
concept.
are approximately correct.
I think only 1 in 5 businesses make it past year 5 or 10.
Yeah, I think it's a small percentage of businesses that end up being successful. But then I think what people don't also, people that haven't started a business will maybe use those metrics as a reason not to start it. But what they haven't realized is that, you started a business. Okay, after 5 or 7 years, it wasn't successful. But in the meantime, it was successful. Like, it paid you some money. You got all these experiences.
Yeah, how much did you learn?
And then what does that person then go on to do afterwards? And I think that's the key question that maybe isn't being spoken about, or the data isn't there.
Yeah, how many successful business owners, like now, started out with failures? I mean,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's the real question. I think that we need to probably understand, and then rebrand that 1 in 7 businesses are successful. What's next for you? Because you're as I say, you're the ambitious mind sat in front of me right now. What is it that's next for you? What do you want to get to?
I think I'm really passionate about Hello Tomorrow, which is the business I've co-founded, the Shopify app. Again, with helping people grow their profit, and hopefully I can make that figure less than, 1 in 5 successful.
Yeah.
I'm really keen to see that succeed, like, no matter what. I think that is, again, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to take a year or two to see results, but I think it's worth the perseverance, because even if it helps one business owner like change their life, I think that's I'm changing what I'm changing how I frame what I'm doing, to like trying to help people and doing things that are more fun rather than just doing it for the money, which is kind of what Solace ended up being. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Obviously, I acquired Atticus Cycling, so I'd really like to make that successful and have fun through that. And again, a lot of the brands, cycling brands, are quite expensive, and we're trying to come in at a reasonable price to help more people get into cycling, but be comfortable along the way. Again, got to balance that with unit economics and everything else. But yeah, those are my 2 projects at the minute. Oh, sorry, I've got a third, which is kind of linked with Hello Tomorrow, but it's content. So again, putting a lot of this stuff out on YouTube. So I started a YouTube channel, and
What's your channel called?
ecom_coach.
Okay.
So bringing back that ecom coaching
So
I tried to do a couple of years ago, but now I've got a lot more experience. But again, that's going to be really difficult. I've put 2 or 3 videos out there, and you get like 5 views, and you think, but a year down the line, hopefully that'll be very different. But
yeah, that was the same with the podcast as well. Like, the first couple, it was just friends and family listening to it, and then it went for a dip where not even my friends and family were listening to it. and then it's just the longer it went on, just all of a sudden I'm getting people leaving comments and reviews, and I'm like, I don't know who this person is. And again, they're not friends and family. Like, the people are actually listening now, which it just takes a long time. And talking about that consistency, the perseverance, you have to keep going. Like, you just have to be consistent with these. The compound returns of it are massive, but not if you stop.
yeah, but I'm definitely not sitting around doing nothing.
You certainly
you know.
are not, no, are you?
Yeah.
Are there any other businesses that you have your eye on buying?
Not well.
Not at the moment.
Yeah. I don't think I can take on any more without dropping the ball on the things that I'm doing.
Yeah. But what I'll do if people are listening to this and like, I do actually think that I benefit from understanding, the Shopify economics, the e-commerce economics a bit more. We'll link it all in the show notes below, because there will be people listening, and I will have guests as well that come back to this, and they will say like, how can I improve my business? And it's so valuable as well, because coming from the finance backgrounds, like I've got an investing background, so even I sort of look at all of the analytics of a business to understand like what makes it profitable, what makes it a good investment to put my money into. And I think that a lot of people don't necessarily understand that when they start a business. It's just all about creating products and selling them, and not necessarily understanding
how much revenue can I make. That's
what
everyone
everyone
talks
focuses
about.
on revenue,
Yeah.
don't they? Yeah. There's a saying, isn't there? Something like, it's like the golf analogy, which is like drive for show, putt for pro, or something like that. It's something similar to with revenue and profit.
I was not good at golf, so I gave that up pretty quickly. But a lot of this I'm giving away for free. So if you go on hellotomorrow.io, the website, there's essentially 50. I explain these 5 fundamentals and then 10 ways to improve them underneath, with a blog post and recommended app. Okay. And I've built a unit economics calculator. So if you don't know what that is, or don't know how to calculate it, I've built a spreadsheet that you can input the data, and it explains exactly what you have to put in, so you can see exactly how much profit you're making.
Amazing.
Per order, and you can calculate that of how many orders does it then take to cover my expenses. And give all that away for free.
Well, honestly, like that, the masterclass was amazing about what people should be doing and focusing on, and I hope now that people go away from this and check out the information and sign up to Hello Tomorrow. Is it live that people can sign up to now?
Yeah.
Or is it just a website?
The app's not live. We're in the process of building it. That's
amazing.
I'm scared to put a timeline on it, but I'm really pushing for it to be done by the end of Q1.
Okay.
But we obviously want to make sure it's right. But I'm starting to push the content out there now. Daniel Priestley build a list.
Yeah. And also now you're trying to build your LinkedIn profile. So if people do want to follow you or even reach out to you, I'm guessing they can do so on that. Yeah,
I'm trying to push content out as much as possible and push those learnings out. So
brilliant. Well, you're the ambitious mind sat in front of me. You've built a great business, and you're so young. I can't even imagine what you're going to build in the future. So
hopefully,
I'm looking forward to. Maybe there'll be a part 2 down the line when you're exiting your next business. But thanks so much for your time, Dan.
Thanks, Jay.